Lesson 9.4, Video 4. So now we're going to look at questions that do not have common denominators. But the denominators in this case are going to be just monomials. So how do we find the least common denominator? Well, we've talked about this in a couple different ways, but we want to be clear on this as well, that when you have a least common denominator, then you can go ahead and add and subtract your numerators, and then simplify when you're all done. Because you don't want to simplify first, because that would cause your denominators to be different. But when they're already different, it's recommended that you try and simplify the fractions as best you can to make your work in trying to find the common denominator as easy as possible. So if we look at our first question, we notice that we have an x in top and two x's below, which gives us 6 over 5xy. Now again, we're not multiplying and dividing here, so we can't cancel diagonally. We can only cancel vertically. And the next one, again, we have x's in common. So now we have a rational expression where we're adding them. They have different denominators, so we need to find the common denominator between these two. So 5 and 3 would be 15. There's an x in one but not the other, so the miser takes the 1. The y's are in both, but the miser would take the most. That is your common denominator. So what do we do now? Well, we need to have common denominators to go any further. So we ask ourselves, what would I multiply 5xy by to make it 15xy squared? Well, I'd multiply it by 3. That would give me 15. It already has the x, but it doesn't have enough y's. So I'd multiply by 3y to make it 15xy squared. But it's a fraction, so you must multiply top and bottom by the same thing in order for it to be proportional. That would give us 18y. In the second one, I have a 3, so I'd multiply that by 5 to make it 15. It doesn't have an x, so I'd have to multiply by x, and it has exactly what it needs for y's, so I would not need to address the y issue. Again, I have to multiply top and bottom by 5x in order for it to be proportional, which gives me a 25x. Now it's all over our common denominator that we created, and this would be considered finished. Alright, so the next one looks kind of messy, but really it's 4y over 1. So before we decide what the common denominator is, let's see if we can simplify. In the second fraction, I see that I have a y on top and 2 on the bottom, and that's it. So our official question is 4y over 1 plus 5 over 6x squared y. Now if we didn't cancel that out now, and we just go ahead and found the common denominators, in the end I would have to simplify. But again, whenever you can simplify first, I recommend it. So the common denominator between these two is easy. It's going to be 6x squared y. So I multiply this by 6x squared y. 6x squared y. So now we have 24x squared y squared plus 5, because that already had the common denominator, over 6x squared y. And this is considered finished. So this ends Lesson 9.4, Video 4.